Hanging out with Max Graham just before his set at the Government Tonight back in Toronto for the third time this year. How are you doing?
I'm all right. I'm okay. I'm a little tired, but looking forward to a good night tonight. So,
where have you been of late, which makes you so tired?
Well, actually, I had the weekend off this weekend, and I've just been working like mad late nights in the studio. I've been kind of producing a lot more this year than I have in the past, so I've been pulling double duty. Instead of having an engineer work for me, I do it all myself. So being touring and being in the studio, it's really tough to sort of find the time to sleep in between. But today I should be a good gig tonight. I don't see any. Tired never really affects me. Once I start playing, it's get locked in and it's fine. So.
You're born in the UK, grew up in Ottawa, but where do you call home now and why?
Still Canada, Montreal specifically. I spent time going to Montreal to play Sona, my monthly residency, years ago, and I just completely fell in love with the city and the scene and the culture there and the sort of liberal attitude and the architecture. So I've Montreal is somewhere I'm going to live for quite some time, even without being able to speak French. But there's always some confusion with the whole England-Canada thing. But because I moved here, 16 years ago, but I didn't start DJing until after I'd lived here. So Canada's where I sort of learned what I know, and my first gigs were here, and the first club we had was here, and residencies and everything. So I learned everything that I learned here. So it wouldn't really be fair for me to try to capitalize on, I'm a UK DJ, because that does add some luster in certain circles in certain countries, if you're from the UK, because they're sort of seen as the capital of dance music. But I felt it was a disservice to people in Canada that have supported me and built me up to say, I'm from the UK, or I'm a UK DJ, because it's just my passport. I don't have a British accent anymore, and although I do play very British, there's plenty of people around the world that aren't from England that do. So Canada's where I call my home, and Canada's the type of DJ that I am, but England's where I was born. That's about it.
Voting for the DJ Mag's Top 100 just finished. Do you think this is a fair representation of a DJ's true skills, or is it just a popularity contest?
No, it has nothing to do with skills at all. It has to do with popularity, which means everything to the business side of our career. It's a very, very accurate gauge of our worth in the marketplace, which is everything. We've moved beyond a level of DJing in our basements and perfecting our mixing skills and trying to mix with 3 turntables. Now we're into a whole different sort of business phase of our careers where there's a huge market out there that supports dance music, and only a very small percentage are really picky about your skills and your ability to mix and scratch and EQ and all that. So to try to constantly make that 1% happy that are not even dancing, they're standing in the booth anyway, it doesn't really make sense. So you're trying to appeal to a much larger market that don't necessarily care about your mixing skills. So this is I think it's a very accurate gauge of your worth in the marketplace and your popularity in the last year, which, how many people pay to come through the door to see you is your popularity. That is your business. That's what we do. So I think, if you look at it as a gauge of, who's the best DJ, it's not accurate at all, because there is no best or worst. Every DJ has a bad night, every DJ plays a different style. It's like art, you can't say there's a best and a worst. But if you want to talk about who's the most popular, this is exactly where you need to go. And I think it's very telling.
On that note, who do you think will be in this year's top 5, and who do you think is the best technical DJ you've been alongside?
That's interesting. Top 5 is going to be the same as the top 10 last year. It's going to be a juggle between sort of Armin, Van Dyke, Tiesto, Sasha, John. Maybe Sander get a little higher this year. Deep Dish get a little higher. They're doing really well. Oakenfold, I don't think's had as much presence, but he still has. He's just like Van Dyke. You don't see him that much, but he's still huge. So, that's what's going to be the top 10. Best technical DJ I've come across? Depends. I think Mark Farina's one of them. He is someone that I watched early on and tried to model myself after technically, because he just knows, he does it with a smile on his face without paying attention. Derek Carter's another one who, is a little sloppy, but it's because he's having so much fun while he's playing. But when he focuses, he can, mix like anybody. I think, Sasha in the studio, is amazing. He knows how to put records together. DJing live, maybe not, I don't know. It's a little different. But, it's hard to gauge technical because some people have the knowledge of how to put records together but can't really do it live that well. But when you put them in a studio situation, they can really tell what goes with what. Digweed's an amazing programmer. Everyone's different for different reasons, So I'd have to say the one guy that I learned the most from and impressed me early on was Mark Farina, of all people. No one would guess that, but for me, that's who it was.
You're also the owner and founder of Shine Music. How has this helped your DJing career?
Well, it's more of a profile thing for me. I mean, I just wanted to take things to that level where I was more involved in the music. Be able to sign things that I heard that I was previously passing on to other labels who maybe wouldn't work it the way I thought it should be worked or wouldn't take care of the music the way I wanted to see it taken care of. I had friends of mine giving me tracks and I was passing them off to other people and didn't like it. So I thought, I want to set something up so that I can get really involved in the process and sign things I love, remix things that I love, and put them out with the sort of care that I want behind them. And, a vinyl label these days isn't really going to make much money. Even 5 years ago, they didn't make that much, and now it's awful. But it was a real chance for me to then, gaining off the profile of that, move it over to the DJ side. And your question is that it has helped the DJ thing quite a bit, because I think it makes people realize that you're still working. You're not sort of resting on your laurels or just, getting gigs and just going home right after. I wanted to really get more involved in the business. And, Sander's done it, Deep Dish has done it. Digweed obviously has the Bedrock thing going. Oakenfold has, Perfecto. So it was just a natural progression for me to build into something I wanted to do. And I thought if I ever came across a huge single that really could be lucrative or could be something that could really help me, I would have the pieces in place to work it right. So I wanted to start a label small with small records, like Coastline wasn't, my best work by any means, but it was a chance for me to test the waters with a new label and get a track out there and see how the process works. And I've learned so much in the last year about running a label, that's for sure.
Do you ever think of giving up DJing to focus on production full time? Or what keeps you in the DJing and the nightclub scene?
I think, production for me is secondary. I love the studio, and I'm actually, this year especially, I said I've been producing more, but I'm actually getting more into it. I'm learning more, and I'm seeing more music than just the sort of stuff I used to make. I'm starting to make a lot of down-tempo, a lot of film score type stuff, and I'm collaborating with different people and vocals, and I'm sort of trying to expand my production. So for the first time, I think I see a future in producing that has a lot more longevity than DJ. You can't travel like we do, forever. I think it would be great to be able to have a career producing and not have to travel all the time. But that, I think, is 10 years down the road. For me, DJing is my true passion. It's what I love to do. To make something in the studio is great, but then to go and play that in front of a crowd and see people get off to it and know that you made it, a week ago or a year ago or even 5 years ago. I'm still playing Airtight every now and again when I go to a city I've never been to. I just went to Buenos Aires and they were like, play Airtight, play Airtight. I'm like, dude, it's 5 years old. They're like, yeah, but you've never been here before. I'm like, you know what, you're right. So to play that and see people get off on it is 10 times better than making it for yourself in the studio. So DJing will always be at the front of my sort of, goals and things I want to improve on. So.
You mentioned Airtight, which was nominated for a Juno in 2001, becoming one of, if not the only trance song to ever do so. How important is this to calling yourself Canadian?
That was huge for me. I had a friend that submitted it that I didn't know about, which was kind of cool. I didn't know it was actually being submitted. And it made it to the top five, or the five finalists. And for a non-vocal trance record by an unknown guy in Canada to make it, that really I was a Juno judge for a couple of years, 8 years ago, 7 years ago. And basically you're sent a box of music, CDs, vinyl, whatever. And you have to go through it and fill out these sheets. And you start with 60, and then it goes down to 20. Then the third round of voting, it goes down to the final 5. Then you vote for the winner. And I know who some of the other voters were, and they weren't in dance music. They were a rock musician and, someone who's owned a record label, and people from really outside the dance scene. So for them to have attached to this record to pull it through to the top 5 was huge for me. And the fact that it was Canada was even better, because I've always been, I'm always really picky about flyers, making sure they say I'm from Canada. You know, I just went to play in a country that said I was from the US or from the UK, I can't remember, and I was like, you know, you guys, it's a different country. And they're like, oh, it's not a big deal. I'm like, it's a huge deal, you know. And I joked to them that I picked their sort of neighboring country that they don't like. And I said, what if you said I wasn't from there, you know, or if I said you were from there? And he's like, oh, freaked out, you know. So I'm like, it's really important for me to be part of Canada. And the Juno thing was amazing. So next year we're going to win one.
Anything new from you or the label coming out soon?
Yeah, I mean, the Jace from Outer Space thing just came out, Do What You Want, which is, you know, really gaining some steam, starting to get some interest from some major labels to pick it up. And the track is done. I couldn't believe I got a chance to sign it. When I heard this thing and it wasn't signed, I just freaked. So I had to do 2 remixes instead of just one, which is great. We've got I've quite a few things, actually. A couple of vocal things. I'm working with Perry O'Neill, trance guy. He's going more progressive, and I love his production, so we're collaborating on a couple of things. Oscar Khan and I are doing another project. I'm actually finally going to put out this Jessica Riddle thing that I've been trying to get going for about 4 years. A big vocal thing by a sort of pop act that left her record label and is doing other things, but I finally got in touch with her, and I really wanted to sort of, the way BT did with Jan Johnson with Calling Your Name. You know, he heard the vocal on a CD. I love the vocal, so I got in touch with her, and now we're putting it together, and we're going to do a full release. I know Marcus has had it in his chart for a while, and you know, Armin's really into it, and so that's, you know, there's a lot on the go, and it's a lot of production stuff. You know, the DJing is kind of in autopilot, and the production is really where I'm focusing, so lots to come.
If you had the chance to work with anyone, who would it be and why?
Ooh, do you know, I don't think I've ever been asked that. That's a good one. Pharrell would be one, just to see how they work in the studio, and you know, those guys are incredible. Wow, there's quite a few people. You know, there's different people for different reasons. I mean, there's people I'm just a fan of that I would love to have the chance to sit down and collaborate with, you know, like Bjork and her voice or something. If someone said, you're going to work with Bjork today, I really wouldn't know what to do. I'd be like, well, what are we going to do? But at the same time, when you ask who would I like to work with, I've never really sat down and thought, what kind of project would her and I bring to the table? But there's just a lot of people I would love to get more involved with. On a direct scale, I mean, I'm working with some of the guys I want to work with. Like when I first heard Oscar Khan's stuff, I'm like, I got to get in touch with this guy. Like his stuff is just amazing, and he works with just Fruity Loops. Like it's unbelievable. So I'm lucky enough to now be in a position to get to work with some of these people. But wow, I think it's pretty endless, the list of people I'd love to work with. So
I've noticed that you're very vocal in regards to MP3 and file sharing. Do you think that there will ever have a place in the hearts of DJs and producers?
As far as, what do you mean? Well, you mean playing MP3s or getting involved? Yeah, definitely. I mean, thanks to the internet. I mean, I play pretty much only CDs now because it's just no point in carrying vinyl when all the stuff I get, I'm getting sent to me over the net. You know, I've got my AOL is like Pete Tong, Deep Dish, Sander. You know, we share each other's stuff. You know, they send it to me and I'll sort of review it, like Dresden's new single sends it. So there's no point in waiting for it to come 4 months on vinyl when I can play it this weekend on CD. So it just, plus the advantages of the CDJ and everything, made me make the switch. And because of that, I mean, we rarely transfer waves. It's all 320 MP3s. So, you know, that I think also with people like Beatport and Audio Jelly, you're seeing now access for the average consumer who doesn't want to go to a tiny record store with a bunch of kids who aren't very helpful trying to sell them vinyl. You know, you don't know where to begin when you walk into a record store and you're not a dance fan. But you can go somewhere like, you know, Audio Jelly or Beatport, and there's countless others now, where you can buy that single you heard Sasha play the night before, or, you know, maybe not Sasha, he's a little bit ahead, but you know what I'm saying, like, you have access to dance music, and I think the MP3 download, iTunes type of environment is opening up these tiny singles labels that would never have access to an HMV. It's opening up the market for these labels tenfold. You know, how many times have I had, you know, been given emails or been sent emails from, you know, like a girl who was at the club who's not a DJ, but she's like, I heard this song last night, where do I get it? And I'm like, you got to go to your tiny local record store, and I don't even know where there is one in your city. You know, I can't say go to HMV because it doesn't exist yet. And it's like they want that song. They've got to wait for it to come out on a compilation which they've got to hope someone's going to sign it, put it on a Oakenfold comp or a GU. It's the only way anyone could ever get half that music. But now with, you're seeing that money generated and going back straight to the labels through Beatport and iTunes. So it's huge. I think it's really a way forward, and you're going to see a lot more sales of these random dance tracks because people can buy them for $1 instead of waiting a year for it to come out on a compilation that they may not want. By then they've forgotten about the song anyway. So it's sort of an instant market thing. I really like it.
So you think it's the downfall of vinyl, the start of the downfall?
Yeah, I think Pioneer's the downfall of vinyl. The CDJ and the DVJ are just so advanced. It just doesn't make sense anymore. Vinyl has a place in my heart. I love records. I've always loved vinyl. I love the needle. I love the analog. I'm sure that, when the vibe is really good in that room, that needle just picks it up and puts it back out again. And you don't get that with CDs. But the advantages now outweigh it. I don't think, I'm not taking anything away from vinyl, but the advantages of being able to loop on the fly and remix stuff at home yourself and do it. I'm getting sent stuff and then I'll edit out bits I don't like and redo it. So, me and Sandra may play the same song. We have different versions of it completely. We have our own personal remixes. Then bring the DVJ in, and it's like now we have our own personal visuals. I have a guy in Montreal. I'll take, Sandra sends me a song, burn it to CD on Monday. On Tuesday, I drop it off at my visuals guy. He creates totally unique visuals for it, burns it onto a DVD, and then Friday I'm playing it at the club. And I've got my own visuals. Danny Howells wants to do like old porno loops, and Sandra's doing a lot of text-based stuff where the words are flying out as they're being sung. And I want to do really color-based stuff so that, when there's a big key change in the song, all the screens will change color. So, the track's blue the whole way through, and then this crazy bass line comes in and they all go red, but it's perfectly on time. Hearing myself say this, vinyl seems like so old now because you can't do any of these things. You're sitting there playing records and it's like, you've got no visuals attached to it. You're forced to play the version that was on there, which the producer probably likes. But, now it just makes us more unique. It makes the night more exciting. It gives more back to people who are paying to come in. And it's a lot easier on your back.
Now, on that note, it's the first time I've heard of a DJ being in control of the visuals. I've always seen it as, there's a lighting guy on the side that does it. Tonight at the Gov, you'll see that, and they're excellent there. But that's actually you choosing what goes on the screen behind and so on.
You still need a visuals guy because, you're playing, you've got two DVJs, so you're basically playing your CDs. There's just visuals attached to them that you've had attached previously. But not every track you play is going to have visuals. So you basically don't want it going to a blue screen at the end of your track. So my visuals guy initially was like, this is the death of visuals, guys. It's just going to be DVDs now. I'm like, actually, it's even better for you because now the DVJ is going to sell the concept that you're going to profit from because you're going to be able to tour. You need a visuals guy to tour with it because he injects his own visuals on top of the DVDs that are playing. And when the DVD stops, he's there to cut over. He's constantly, he's got his own mixing board. So you're one signal coming in, then he's got his own visuals. So he's ready to sort of pick up the slack when the song ends and go on with his own visuals. So you have to travel with two guys to do it, but it really is the future. And again, each DJ will have different visuals. So it's like even if we have the same song, it brings a completely different energy to the room when you have control over the visuals. But I think, general acceptance is still a little far off because it's hard to justify renting, 6 screens and 6 projectors and flying the visuals guy with you. But it definitely is the way forward, so.
Moving on, a lot of DJs have their own radio shows now. Everybody seems to have their own show. Is this something that you see as almost a necessity in the business?
I think so. When you look at sort of rising above, we can't just show up to gigs anymore and just play records and leave. We need to have, the fans are really smart, and with the internet now, you can reach so many more people. And I think exposure is so key, through the press. And, you see the DJs that have the most exposure usually seem to be the most popular, regardless of their skills. So exposure is key to your success from the business side of things. So because of that, you see people doing everything they can to gain more exposure. And, I think it's a necessity in any business. But for us, the radio show is the way to go. If you're a chef, you get a cooking show, or you get an article in a magazine every month and you do, whatever you can do. I was just watching the cooking channel, and I was like, wow, these guys all have their own shows. Like, it's a great way to promote your restaurant and your menu books, and you've got to look at every way to promote yourself. And a radio show is a huge way for us to do it, and to try out our new music and get reactions and stay connected with people, So, yeah, it is a necessity.
For those DJs that are just starting out, they do have the skills, they do have the technical quality, and they can play and pick out good music. What's the other step of exposure that they need other than radio? What else can they do to get themselves exposed?
Well, everyone and their mother is a DJ these days. Luckily the guys that are doing well now, we're all, we were laughed at 15 years ago. I was the AV guy doing the fashion show while the cool guys were on the football team, and it's like, now obviously DJing has become such a trendy, you see, and I saw a stovetop cleaning commercial where the girl's cleaning her stove and it's making scratch noises. I'm like, what has this come to? I don't know if you've seen it. Anyway, it's terrible. But it has absolutely nothing. It's a stovetop cleaner, nothing to do with DJing. And so because of that, you see this influx, a huge influx of DJs, and everyone knows how to mix, and everyone plays great records, and everyone's editing things out of other people's sets, and so the record collections are great. Like, the only way to separate yourself is to produce, and there's no argument against it, because you see so many big name DJs who are not very good DJs that were touring the world on the back of a hit single. I worked as hard as I could in Canada to build myself up, and then I reached a point where I couldn't go any further, no matter how good my mix CDs were, or how good my DJ sets were, or my reviews or whatever. I just was not going to get booked in a lot of cities because I didn't have a name anyone knew. No one cares about your skills, no one cares about your music. They want to know if you have a name and you can get people in the door. And the way to create your name overnight is to produce a hit record, or a record that will get onto a major compilation. Airtight took me from, Eastern Canada to the whole world in 6 months, and 6 months was the time it took me to get around the world, but all those places were interested instantly. It got me transport, which then helped in the US, so it all came off the back of Airtight. And Airtight, picked up by Oakenfold, picked up by Tiesto, instantly gave me a name recognition. That got my foot in the door to then prove that I could DJ. I think there are DJs who have only toured once or twice, and their sets have been so bad that people don't book them back, even though they had a big record. But it got their foot in the door, and that's the key. If you can produce a record, either by yourself, or if you don't have the skills to do that, which is really tough to learn, and hit records aren't easy to come by, to work with someone else who does, and try and sort of create that single that's going to propel your name. Eric Prydz is playing all over the world now because of Call on Me. It's been number 1 3 weeks in the UK. No one knew who he was except DJs maybe 12 weeks ago, So it's just, that's all you need. And that will then get your foot in the door to show how good you are technically, how good you are programming-wise, how good you are stage presence, how professional you are, all that. The only way you're going to get that chance is by producing. I think the days of John Digweed sending a mixtape into Renaissance they just don't exist anymore.
What's the worst thing in the electronic dance scene?
Message boards. I think that wow, that was a good one. It just popped right out. I wouldn't say message boards. I would say that message boards are where you find these people. It's just people that don't realize that there's so much more out there than just what they like and what they see, and I think they're a detriment to the scene. But I think you find that in every, like movie critics. But unfortunately, everyone can be a movie critic on a message board, and be a DJ critic, and be a music critic, and not realize that we're so lucky to have what we have. We have this amazing scene that 99% of the world knows nothing about. How many people actually will go out and dance till 11 in the morning? It's literally like 1% of the planet, if that. Nothing. 1% of the first world. No one really realizes what we're doing, and it's amazing. We have this whole secret culture, and there's so much good music coming out, and there's so much fun to be had. And you see, just there's this little bit of this, sort of, the whole message board argument culture is like, you guys have so much to be happy for. You have no reason to be complaining. So that's the only thing that kind of bugs me. It's like, we're all in this together. It's a small scene. No one's making that much money. It's not like, it's not a hip hop is obviously a huge enterprise. I mean, you have your few that are making good money, but overall, like, we're all just in this because we love it. I would have been a lawyer or a banker if I wanted to make millions of dollars. I'm doing this because I love music and I love playing live. And, you got to realize how lucky we are to have all this. So.
And where can people contact you?
Well, I'm really on top of my tour section to make sure it's up to date at maxgraham.com, and obviously all the label info is at shinemusic.com. Shine Music, one word. So everything's up there.
Finally, where are you off to next?
That's a good question. I have no idea. Actually, I have a big tour coming up. Next week I do Edmonton, Victoria, Vancouver. Then I go to Hawaii for 4 days. I'm basically playing for free in exchange for a hotel room and a gig for 4 days. So to do some scuba diving and relax. Then I do San Diego and Monday Night Social in Los Angeles, which is a tiny little Monday night. And then come home. So I'll be gone for about 10 days. And then I go to Holland the next week to do Panama, a great club there. And I think London the night before that, I'm not sure. So never stops. People always say, how was your tour? And I'm like, you mean the last 5 years? It really never stops for us. So.
Well, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure. And tonight's going to be a kick-in party.
I think so. It should be really good. Well, thanks for having me.
Just quickly before you go, if I could get you to say, hey, this is Max Graham, you're listening to Amplified Radio. And the other one would be your name, as well as this is my latest track on Amplified Radio. I usually just pick them up off Beatport or wherever when they come out and throw them on. So
perfect. Hi, this is Max Graham, and you're listening to Amplified Radio. What was the other one? Hi, this is Max Graham, and this is my latest track on Amplified Radio.
We're talking with Max Graham. We'll be back in just a second. Hold tight. Just trying to get some liners on so I can cut it up, because 26 minutes is hard to go in a row. So,
talk radio.
Yeah, I've already done that before, so it's pretty crazy.
How long can you do it? It's only going to be like 8 minutes or something.
I'll chop it down, yeah, or I'll split it up. We're chatting with Max Graham from Montreal. Hold tight. We'll be back with him in a little bit.
You got maxgraham.com, shinemusic.com.
Actually, if you want to throw that in, I'll just...